Hello everyone, my name is Mark and this is Mark's Coding Project. Welcome back. Today's tutorial is going to be all about mouse events. So sort of the entire project so far, we have relied on commands via the console in order to enter a counter. So any user interaction is done through a little console window inside of our IDE, and that is how we're getting input. The aim of this tutorial is going to be to show you guys how we're going to use what's known as I believe it's a mouse listener, to pick up input from the user via the mouse, and therefore we can have input come in via the graphics rather than through a console. So the long-term goal is we want the user to be able to click on the board in the location where they want to place a counter, and the counter will be placed in that column that they've clicked on. So if I take you guys back down, what we have, when you implement the mouse listener, you have this bunch of methods that you have to override. So there's mouse clicked, and then there's also mouse pressed, released, entered, and exited. So I'll start off by explaining what each one of those does. So mouse clicked is when the user clicks the mouse. So you click, that kind of thing. I'm clicking the mouse right now. But it's a specific action. So it's the act of you press it down, release it, and once that's done, that is counted as a click. The reason why I'm being so specific is because the next one, mouse pressed, is when, say, you press, like my finger's still on the left, button? The left button on the mouse. That's a press. So the minute I press down on the mouse, as part of a click, this method will already have triggered. And then for release, once I let go of my finger off the mouse, that's a release. So if you think about it, you have mouse pressed, then you have the clicked, and then you have the released. So every single time you click the mouse, all three of those methods are triggered at the same time, or sort of in sequence. Then the final two we have is mouse entered and mouse exited. So entered is when the mouse enters a certain region. So say like hovering, for example. So I think if I hover over this keyword, it lights up. If I hover, this word shifts. Is more, I don't know, this one's probably a bad example because it's more when I click the mouse. But those icons when you hover over them, it gives you more information. Like that, there we go. Hover over that, that was a mouse entered. So the minute my mouse entered this region, this method will have triggered and this functionality will have appeared. The minute I leave this region, mouse exited will have triggered, and it will have removed this functionality. See, this functionality no longer shows. I could dance all the way around it, and once I enter, entered is triggered, and boom, that drop-down list is there. So the only one that we really want is clicks. We might improve this in the future, but I don't really think we'll need to. So the others that I've just ignored, you do need to leave them in your code. So if I try and delete all of these, even though we're not using them, if I try and delete it, it'll get upset. So best just to leave it alone. You'll notice that this method takes a mouse event as a parameter, and that is just the Java standard for anything to do with the mouse. So any mouse movements or clicks, that's all falls under mouse events. I'm very simply using this in order to get the X coordinate and the Y coordinate of where I've clicked on the screen. I'm then setting the X value to a global variable that we have. So I've set up this X global variable because we're going to want to pass it to our logic class later. And then finally, we have a click tally. And the idea being with that is that once you've clicked the board, you don't want to be able to click multiple times. So the set clicks has been put in place so that it doesn't allow you to just spam full counters in the row. Like once you've entered your move, then it should stop you. Yeah, so that's mouse clicked. And this method, don't have to call it. It's just, it links to the mouse listener interface. So anything that where you place you place implements, you place in the implements keyword, and then you place the name of something, is known as an interface. And I probably should have included that extends. You extend a class. So JFrame is a class, and MouseListener is an interface, and they have slightly different functionality. So the next thing that worth mentioning is that the way that our MouseListener is being added to the screen. So when we draw our Connect 4 board up here, I've also added some lines where we create a new J component, or rather we create a new label called New Content Pane. And this is just like a standard that I saw online. So there's a Java like open source sort of example project of how to do this, and they use J component and they link it to a label. So I'm just, they wrote the language, so I thought they're probably wiser than I am, so I just copied them. I then used set size and set location, fairly self-explanatory. The idea is that it's going to match the image. So the width and the height of the content pane are meant to be the width and the height of the image, and the location matches the location for the image as well. And the image I'm referring to is the board. So not a counter, this is the board. So we basically want a panel on top of the board, which is going to read in mouse input. Finally, we then simply add our MouseListener to our content pane, to our JLabel. So what we're saying is this this class classes as a MouseListener object because we've implemented MouseListener. So what that means is that this functionality is then sort of added to our project. And more specifically, it's added to the project within the content pane that we've defined it. So MouseListener is only used inside of this size area at this location, if that makes sense. So its functionality is bound to the container which is added to. So we could add our MouseListener to our JFrame, and then anywhere you clicked on the screen, our click method would work. What next? Add new content pane. So finally, we're just adding our new content pane, so our JLabel, onto the screen. I think that's all the changes we've made for the graphics. Yeah, it is. So if I then go across to the logic class, and I'll show you guys what we've done there. I've changed the I haven't completely changed it, but I've created a new GetMove GUI method. So this is GetMove via graphics rather than via the console. And it takes the same parameters as before, it's just we're also passing it the GUI object. So if I close this, I have kept the GetMove method. And the reason for that is because this GetMove GUI doesn't currently work. This is just like the basis of what I'm doing at the moment. So it still needs some fine tuning. But the idea is that a lot of the functionality is copied. And the idea is that this is basically the same, or certainly like the top half of it's different in terms of the move being entered is not using a scanner. Instead, it's using the X coordinate of the mouse click. However, the get row and this code here is identical in GetMove and GetMove GUI. So I wanted to keep things as simple as possible. We then just have a bunch of else if statements, and that just says, okay, well, if your X coordinate on your mouse is so large, then we want to place a counter at such and such coordinate, and so on and so forth, and it will go down the board. So if you imagine from X to coordinate 697, that's, column 6, like here, and then we decrease it to 622, and then that's here, and then 5 or 7, that's here, and you go along basically. It's so annoying because I want to give you guys a demo, but it doesn't work yet, which is really frustrating. The main thing that I think I want to stress in this tutorial at least, is the fact that in order to get user input, we have implemented an interface. So what's come with that is we have been given a set of predefined methods that we must overwrite. In addition, in this specific example, we then need to slot this extended functionality into our graphics setup. But I suppose the main thing that I really want to stress is the fact that it is literally just a case of like we've basically been given like another part and we've just stuck it on top basically. It's very simple. Like all of the MouseListener stuff is completely independent to the rest of our code pretty much. I mean, minus this bit, but even then, like, you know, all of this is kind of self-contained. So the mouse input is its own little thing, so it doesn't really relate to the rest of the functionality of the program. How we use the information from MouseListener, yes, that's me, and currently that's not working. So yeah, as you can tell, I wrote that bit, not them. But the acquiring of mouse input is a self-contained thing, and that is one of the beauties of using a library or this kind of thing. You want to have a little block of code that does exactly what you want, and you want it to be self-contained. Like, you wouldn't want the mouse logic to in any way affect the logic of the game, if that makes sense. Well, certainly you want the contact between the two to be minimal. So you want the actual extraction of mouse moves and stuff. You want all of that to be completed by the time that you get to your game logic. So I wouldn't want to be faffing on trying to get the X coordinate while I'm trying to run my game loop, while I'm trying to calculate the get row, for example. You want to do stuff in stages, and you want to break the code down into little chunks. There is an argument actually that you see this here. This refers to an object, and it refers to an object of test multiple connections. What we could do is we could create a brand new class. We could put an implements at the end of it, implements MouseListener, and instead of using this, we would reference that object instead as our parameter. So what we do is we would put all of our mouse code to a separate class. It's just the fact that what our mouse is doing is so incredibly basic that it might not necessarily be worth it. However, from an organizational standpoint, you know, it would certainly make the graphics class at least look a bit nicer and tidier. But, you know, it's tricky. You're not gaining a huge amount by it, so it is certainly personal preference. But in more advanced projects, 100% I would be creating a new class, putting all of my mouse logic into a separate class, and just adding that object onto the screen. And yeah, to be honest with you, I think that's all I've got. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. The code will be going up on GitHub, and hopefully I'll see you guys back here for the next video, where we should have this working and I can give you an actual demo, which will be quite nice.